Welcome to part two of this video. So we are going to pick up just where we left off. So we have completed one example of the parenthetical citation, and I have a few more for us to look at. This one from the second source is a little bit different because it is someone who is quoted in the article. And this is often going to be tempting to do because other sources are going to quote people with good credibility, good ethos. And so you may want to do the same. I just want to briefly talk about a few issues to remember with that. So as you see, I've copied and pasted, and I haven't even changed these quotes within a quote to apostrophes, or as the British call them, inverted commas, because they're upside down commas. That makes sense. Um, so I don't like seeing something that has a quote and then says he says in it in your essay. I think that would undermine your credibility a bit. So part of this, if you're quoting someone who's quoted in a source, is knowing how to introduce that person well. So let's go for a second to this second source. So this comes about fairly late in the article where it talks about the prince. So here we go. He is the younger brother of the current Oba, who is the ruler. And so keep that in mind. We need to know his full name. So I can go ahead and copy and paste this. Remember, if you copy and paste things, that's not the worst thing you can do. Make sure, though, that if it's something other than a proper noun, that you are putting quotation marks around it. And if it is a proper noun, make sure that you are formatting it in the same as your own. Don't have a quote dropped in here that has a completely different format. So here I've got his name. So Prince Eden Akinzua, what is a good active verb that we can use to introduce? The English returned the Stone of Scone to Scotland some years ago. So why can't they return our things? They mean so much to us, but they mean nothing to the British. So how about something active like he bemoans, which is not a whining, it's expressing frustration with a situation. And I think that is a perfect situation for this. Now, in this original quote, it was a quote within a quote. We are not making it a quote within a quote. We're just saying his words without saying any of the writer's words. And again, I'm going to paste this in with the same formatting. So now, what I need to do, I've made sure that there are no quotes from the writer. It's only what this person says. So there is a special thing to do in a parenthetical citation for this, and that is quoted in. But we don't write the full word quoted. We go with QTD period space in, and then we would have the first information from that works cited citation. And so that is going to be the author's last name. So O-T-Z-E-N. So O-T-Z-E-N. Now, this is not a terrible sentence, but if you are not already aware of who this person is, I recommend that you put in more information. So you may want to do research on exactly who he is in Nigeria today and what power he has and his relationship to this negotiation. And then have a short phrase. So I'm going to write the brother of the, I believe it's Oba, I'm going to go back and check that, who and a chief negotiator. So I'm not taking a long time to set this up. I'm just doing this briefly, and then I would go back and make sure that all of this is right, go back and check any spelling errors. And then I would have the person who said it, I would have the credibility, I would have the signal phrase, and you always want to have some of your own writing in with the sentence. I would have the actual quote, and then I would have the parenthetical citation with quoted in at the beginning, and then the name of the beginning of the works cited citation where you can find this. So you can get all the way from here to there. I'm not giving him credit for the entire article. I'm making it clear that it's just this particular information in a source written by someone else. Okay. So if you have questions about anything where you're quoting someone who's quoted in the source, please come back and ask me about it in with the particular circumstances, because that can help a lot. So we're going on to source number 3. There are at least 3,000 items scattered worldwide, maybe thousands more. No one's entirely sure. I chose this quote because I find it kind of mind-blowing, the scale of this, where not only is it at least 3,000 items, it is knowing that it's possibly thousands in addition to that. And then the fact at the end, no one knows. So I think those 3 pieces back to back makes this a good quote when its individual pieces wouldn't have been. But by having those 3 things side by side, I'm all for including it. So let's see this source. So this is our source number 3. So our article is Alex Marshall. So if you're not, he's not a huge name, so I wouldn't have his name on its own to set up credibility, but the fact that he's publishing in New York Times helps a lot. So I'm going to use those 2 pieces together to set up his credibility, okay? So writing in the New York Times, Alex Marshall. What's a good verb here? So again, really try to think outside the box. Don't just use says or states. Try to think of different words that you can use throughout the course of the essay so that you're not repeating yourself. So writing in the New York Times, Alex Marshall, then there are at least 3,000 items scattered worldwide, maybe thousands more. No one's entirely sure. What could work well here? And I'm hoping that you're calling something out as you're watching this, that something is popping out at you faster than it is at me. So you could go with something boring like states and then have the quote. It could also be considers. I don't like that as much. Let's just go with states or points out if I hadn't used that so far, but get not overly creative where it draws attention away, but try to avoid the repetition. So I'm going to go with states since these are facts. Ooh, but maybe instead of just that, how about just claims? So now it is time for the parenthetical citation. Now I've got New York Times, I've got Alex Marshall. Do I need a parenthetical citation? Do I have the information that that is at the beginning of that works cited citation? I think that would be the author's last name, comma, first name. I think I've got it here. Let's see. Yeah. Author's last name, comma, first name, title of article, title of journal. So okay, that's journal. We need number 10 online, which is right here, which is still author's last name, first name, title of article, name of newspaper. So we already have that information there, which means I get to delete that part and make sure you put the period before the final quotation mark instead of afterward. Okay. And to be clear, you only have to set up the credibility for your source the first time that you mention it. After that, you've established what that source is, and you could say just Marshall next time so it can shorten down. But the first time when you're introducing the source, you do need to take the time. So this last one is a long quote. It's about as long as I would want to see anything in here. And this is from the opinion piece in the New York Times from the Nigerian artist who has this experience of seeing the Benin bronzes in the British Museum, and this is what he has to say about it. Nothing prepared me for the emotional wrench I felt when I stood before the columns of brass plaques suspended from vertical rods at the lower level of the museum as if they were washed old underwear left to dry in the wind. At shrines and altars back home, such works have context and meaning. In the clinical setting of the museum, they seem diminished and out of place. I like this because this gives a reason for returning the sculptures that isn't just because, well, they were originally from there. This is about context, and this is about honoring tradition and someone feeling that out of the context, it's not being honored. I think that the imagery of the old underwear left to dry in the wind is extremely vivid and can work really well. So let's get his name. So this is our fourth one, Victor, and he is an artist from Nigeria. So possibly going with Nigerian artist. Oh, and it helps when I don't have it in that kind of font. Make sure that you're using the same kind of font. I'm doing a right click and then using the icon with the A. So I'm going to say complains. And here we have all of this. Complaints may not be the perfect thing, but it's not terrible. So because his name is already in here and his name would be at the beginning of this works cited citation for the New York Times, I'm just going to put a period here. You could also have a phrase writing in the New York Times to set up his ethos even more strongly. Helps when I get the spacing correct. So you can put that context in. Now it's got his name, so it's clearly going to link back. We're showing where the quote begins and ends. So some of these places will need in-text citations in terms of parenthetical citations, citations in the parentheses. Some of these just need in-text citations in terms of the signal phrase. But make sure you're introducing each source and setting up why the reader should care about what this person has to say. Again, if you have any questions or difficulties, please don't hesitate to let me know, because this can get complicated and there are always exceptions to the rule. So I'm happy to look at particular instances with you. You only need to ask.